In the icy, windswept expanse of Russia's Ural Mountains, there is a place where the trees stand like silent sentinels and the snow lies thick and undisturbed. This is the Dyatlov Pass, named after a tragedy so chilling, so mysterious, that more than 60 years later, the world is still searching for answers. It is a story of 9 experienced hikers who set out on a journey, only to vanish into the frozen wilderness, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions, bewildering evidence, and a legend that has grown with every retelling. The year was 1959. The Soviet Union, shrouded in secrecy and tension, was a land of both scientific ambition and bureaucratic caution. On January 23rd, Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and seasoned trekker, led a group of 8 friends on an expedition to Otorten, a remote mountain whose name, in the language of the indigenous Mansi people, means "don't go there." For these young adventurers, the journey promised challenge, camaraderie, and the thrill of exploring the wild. Each member was carefully chosen for their skill and experience. Engineers, students, athletes, all bonded by a love of the outdoors. The group included Zinaida Kolmogorova, a bright and determined woman, Rustem Slobodin, an avid runner, Lyudmila Dubinina, known for her resilience, Yuri Doroshenko, a man of strength and humor, Alexander Kolovatov, a quiet thinker, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, charismatic and athletic, Semyon Zolotaryov, the oldest, a war veteran joining the group at the last minute, and Yuri Krivonashenko, the joker. There was also Yuri Yudin, who due to illness would turn back early, unwittingly saving his own life. The journey began with high spirits. The team documented their adventure with photographs and diaries, capturing laughter and struggles alike. They skied and trekked through dense forest and over frozen lakes, steadily making their way towards the pass. But as January drew to a close, the weather worsened. Blizzards swept across the slopes, temperatures dropped to 30 degrees C, and visibility faded. By February 1st, the group had reached the base of Kholat Syakhl, Mountain of the Dead. They pitched their tent on a barren, exposed slope, a decision likely made to avoid descending into a wooded valley by nightfall. That evening, they cooked a simple meal, took photos, and recorded their thoughts. The last entry in their diary was hopeful, even playful. They expected to reach Otorten the next day, but they never arrived. Days passed with no word. When rescue teams finally reached their last known location on February 26th, they found a scene that defied explanation. The hiker's tent, half buried in snow, had been slashed open from the inside. The group's boots and heavy jackets were left behind, as if they had fled in terror, barefoot or in socks, into the unforgiving night. The searchers followed the tracks down the slope into the sparse woods below. Under a cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies, Doroshenko and Krivonashenko, lying side by side in their underwear, their hands charred from trying to grasp embers from a small fire. Broken branches above suggested someone had climbed the tree, perhaps searching for the tent or a way to escape something unseen. Between the tree and the tent, 3 more were found: Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. Their position suggested they were trying to crawl back to shelter. Like the first 2, they wore little clothing and bore no fatal wounds, only minor cuts and bruises. Finding the remaining 4 travelers took more than 2 months. They finally were found May 4th under 4 meters, 13 feet of snow in a ravine, 75 meters, 246 feet, further into the woods from the pine tree. 3 of the 4 were better dressed than the others, and there were signs that some clothing of those who had died first had been removed for use by the others. Dubinina was wearing Krivonashenko's burned, torn trousers, and her left foot and shin were wrapped in a torn jacket. A legal inquest started immediately after the first 5 bodies were found. A medical examination found no injuries that might have led to their deaths, and it was concluded that they had all died of hypothermia. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, but it was not thought to be a fatal wound. An examination of the 4 bodies found in May shifted the narrative of the incident. 3 of the hikers had fatal injuries. Thibault Brignol had major skull damage, and Dubinina, and Zolotaryov had major chest fractures. According to Boris Vozrojdeny, the force required to cause such damage would have been extremely high, comparable to that of a car crash. Notably, the bodies had no external wounds associated with the bone fractures, as if they had been subjected to a high level of pressure. All 4 bodies found at the bottom of the creek in a running stream of water had soft tissue damage to their head and face. For example, Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, part of the lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of skull bone, while Zolotaryov had his eyeballs missing, and Alexander Kolevatov his eyebrows. V.A. Vozrojdeny, the forensic expert performing the post-mortem examination, judged that these injuries happened post-mortem because of the location of the bodies in a stream. Initial speculation suggested that the indigenous Mansi people, reindeer herders in the area, had attacked and killed the group for encroaching upon their lands. Several Mansi were interrogated, but the investigation indicated that the nature of the deaths did not support this hypothesis. Only the hikers' footprints were visible, and they showed no sign of hand-to-hand struggle. Although the temperature was low, about 25 to 30 degrees, 13 to 22 degrees, with a storm blowing, the dead were only partially dressed. Some had only one shoe, while others wore only socks. Journalists reporting on the available parts of the inquest files claim that it states 6 of the group members died of hypothermia and 3 of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby on Kholat Shekel apart from the 9 travelers. The tent had been ripped open from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Traces from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite of their own accord, on foot. Some levels of radiation were found on one victim's clothing. To dispel the theory of an attack by the indigenous Mansi people, Vozrojdeny stated that the fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by human beings, because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. Released documents contained no information about the condition of the hikers' internal organs. At the time, the official conclusion was that group members had died because of a compelling natural force. The inquest officially ceased in May 1959 as a result of the absence of a guilty party. The files were sent to a secret archive. In 1997, it was revealed that the negatives from Krivonashenko's camera were kept in the private archive of one of the investigators, Lev Nikitich Ivanov. The film material was donated by Ivanov's daughter to the Dyatlov Foundation. The diaries of the hiking party fell into Russia's public domain in 2009. In February 2019, Russian authorities reopened the investigation into the incident, although only 3 possible explanations were being considered: an avalanche, a slab avalanche, or a hurricane. The possibility of a crime had been discounted. Another group of hikers, about 50 kilometers, 31 kilometers south of the incident, reported that they saw strange orange spheres in the sky to the north on the night of the incident. Similar spheres were observed in Ivdel and adjacent areas continually during the period from February to March 1959 by various independent witnesses, including the Meteorology Service and the military. These sightings were not noted in the 1959 investigation, and the various witnesses came forward years later. To this day, no one knows what happened, by the force of nature or invisible force or aliens. All is an unsolved mystery. Follow @NoFaceTrueCrime for more mysterious, mind-blowing stories.